Great. Well,
Oh, go ahead. What was that, Katie?
what was the title of the one that you had listened to again?
While we're talking, I'm gonna it was something about raising young men, and I'll find the link to it and put it in the
Okay.
put it in the chat. Yeah.
I had listened to the same one that Lorraine had emailed out. The first one though, about why young men are in decline and what to do. Yeah, it was really good. I think my favorite thing was he talked about the importance of installing grit in your kids. And I just love that word grit. I wish I would have installed it a little more in my own kids. They're amazing kids, they're amazing young adults, but I definitely probably did a little too much what he calls concierge parenting, kind of doing that. But he talked about the importance of your kids having a job where they have to put up with the public, and just what a great experience that is to just be out there and interacting with all different kinds of people and how to handle those situations. And I thought that is so true. And I agree, Ellen, he is so smart, and how he just whips off all of those statistics and they're just right there. I really enjoyed the podcast. So thank you for the homework. It was great.
I had listened to him for the first time a month or two ago with Dax Shepard's armchair. He has his armchair expert is what it's called. Anyway, and he interviewed him, and he referred to some of these statistics and stuff too, and I find it fascinating and actually kind of encouraging. I have 4 children between the ages of 24 and 29 right now, and I see so much of what they're referring to, and it helped make sense of so much of what their struggles there are, or what their friends are struggling with, either way. But that idea of grit in that interview, Katie, I was like, the interviewer, don't know his name, he said he wants to do that for his children. His children are little, and he's at upstate New York, and he and his wife he says self-reports that they're well off, both of them, and they come together and they have these children, and they're doing very, very well. And my question then becomes how? How? Because I wanted that too, and I'm thinking outside of a working farm. And that's not the only way. I know that. I know getting in the public, but it's tricky. It's tricky. And they also talked about what you grew up with, how it affects who you are today, and, expectations and all that good stuff. But how do you do it if you don't have experience with it? And that's what's tricky. And I think as a parent educator, that's my question. Mm-hmm. How do I put that in front of parents, and then what? Grit. So what's that going to look like? And I think that's where I'm going to explore what you say, Katie. I think that's where I need to explore that more for the groups. But anyway, another thing that they had talked about that I thought was fascinating was online, and I don't know if they did it in this one, but they did it with Dax Shepard, and he was talking about online dating and about the numbers. Did he refer to that in these other ones? Okay, he talked about how in online dating, 80% of the women, young women, they're talking about young women, are looking at 30% of the men. They do reference they date at their level and higher, women do, and men date at their level and lower economically. And so they're talking about this change up and how things are changing. And I thought it was fascinating that as so many women are going over a smaller percentage of men, which is different than it has been historically. And that's leaving more of the guys looking for less of the women, fewer of the women are available or whatever. And so it's an interesting juxtaposition that's going on, which I find, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but it's curious to me. Mm-hmm. What that means. And I appreciated that they talked about they are they are the population that has lost the most ground in the last few years. And that makes me, I see that
Mhm.
in my experience with the children I have and with the their friends. I see it's a change, and it's yeah, an interesting time we're living in.
Greta, I'm trying to find that podcast under Armchair Expert and it's not coming up for me.
Galloway.
Yeah. I did a-
When was it? Like 2 months ago, maybe now. I think I listened to it.
Okay, I'll keep
Maybe
digging.
maybe it's even maybe it's even back towards January. Galloway.
I did a search for Galloway and Armchair Expert and nothing came up, so I'll keep checking.
Okay.
So this is a really great conversation. So let's bring our new guest into the conversation. Also, we're recording, so watch your mouth. Welcome everybody. Sarah, you're in your car. Great that you could join us. I know that this is a busy day for you. And let's just do a quick go around for our viewing audience at home and introduce ourselves, and then we can catch up, and then we'll come back to our conversation. Specifically, so what we're talking about is about young men in society today. And this harkens somewhat to our homework on from Scott Galloway and various podcasts and blog posts and whatnot that we have heard him speak about challenges to raising young men in today's society. And then this idea of grit. And I put in the chat a link to Paul Tuff's book on how children succeed. This came out, yeah, I guess maybe 8 or so years ago. But throughout it, he cites a lot of James Heckman's longitudinal research from early childhood, looking at kids who then have graduated from high school, or how they've done in high school and then after, and kind of dispelling the that it's the kids who do the best grades, or the kids who, whatever, and that it's more about this personality characteristic of grit and sort of that resilience and toughness, and where that comes from, and cites a lot of even attachment research and that sort of thing. So let's go do a quick go around. Hi everybody, I'm Susan Walker, formerly from the University of Minnesota, and now from the easy chair in my house. Greta?
I'm Greta Nelson, and I am a parent educator in Cambridge Isani Schools. And Cinnamon.
Hi, I'm Cinnamon Tyson, and I'm from Chisago Lakes. I'm the parent educator for the program.
Hi, I'm Katie Anderson. I'm from Jordan. I'm the parent educator in the ECFE program here. And I just want to say hi to Michelle, who's on the call. And Michelle and I, 23 years ago, graduated together in the master's program at the University of Minnesota. And we actually walked together and hadn't seen each other since then. And then we met up at the Menafee conference. So I'm so excited that she's here. Michelle.
I think she fell off. She's not here
did
anymore.
she? Oh
Yeah.
no, she was on.
Sad.
Yeah, so I told her about this call. Hopefully she comes back on, but
Sure.
let's see. Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Trahey. I'm the parent educator and home visitor for Albany School District. Sarah, can you answer questions, Sarah, or not so well?
You bet. Yeah. I can.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. I'm glad to be here. I'm Sarah Hardy. I currently work for District 196, Roselawn, Apple Valley, Egan. And I will be wrapping up my time there on June 8th. So that's by choice. I'm going to springboard into the life of an empty nester and doing some other parent ed related projects that aren't don't have me committed to a school calendar. So that's me. And I can't see anybody else, so I'm gonna just leave it to somebody else to pick up the baton.
I think it's me, Ellen Hafner, parent educator in Northfield.
And Greta, I called on you first, didn't made up?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, we're good. Well, and hopefully Michelle will come back to
Did-
us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
Oh,
Cinnamon go?
no, she's there.
Okay. Okay. No, I meant did she? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind. NBM.
Okay, well, that would be one of those things I would edit out if I was editing this video. But I'm not. So, well, let's get back to this conversation about young men, and thanks for putting in those links to the episodes and whatnot. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this word grit. Because I think that depending on who's hearing it, they might interpret it differently.
Mhm.
You know, and especially with this idea of, again, with sort of my boomer generation idea of grit, it's not a good thing. I mean, it's like, you know, for us, we would say, put on your big girl panties, right? And to just kind of be resilient and tough things out, you know. But I think for boys, you know, it can have that sort of negative connotation, or that very stereotypical He-Man show no emotion, you know, and you know, grin and bear it, and that sort of true grit, you know, kind of thing. And certainly from that book by Paul Tough, which is very readable, and you know, sort of a middle line between a research volume and a lay public book. There's a lot of really good research that really does get to characteristics of resilience and context that really promote resilience and toughness in kids. But anyway, enough about that. Anybody else?
Well, I seem to recall I have a file in my you know, all my stuff, and I apparently tried to put together a lesson plan on this a while ago. It looks very unfilled. So I had a date on it of 2018. So it's been winter of 18. So it's been in my folder for a long time. But I don't know what book. I said copy page 214 of what book, maybe the grit book. I don't know. Don't you hate it when you do that?
Yep.
Apparently, and it might have been from the book called Grit. I know there's a book titled Grit. Is that which one you were talking about, Susan?
It's called How Children Succeed. But
Oh, I think this is like legit. Yeah, find out for me, Greta. I'm pretty sure there's literally a book called Grit.
Yeah, there is.
So, okay. So apparently I needed to copy page 214, but the definition from that book was a combination of passion and perseverance for a singularly important goal that is more important than talent or luck. And I think what I didn't like about that is that it gives parents the notion that their child needs to pick a passion, which I really don't like that. I really don't like it when parents focus on like, yeah, his passion's going to be football. I'm like, he's 4, you know? But there was something interesting. There was a study about high expectations in that book.
Angela Duckworth, Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance.
It's Angela Duckworth.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. Isn't she the one who does all the really cute cartoons?
yeah.
Oh, so in that book, she talked about there was a recent study and experiment where researchers wanted to see what effect the message of high expectations were in conjunction with huge support. So 7th grade teachers provided written feedback on student essays, including suggestions for improvement and any words of encouragement they would normally give. So teachers fill the margins with comments, right? And once graded, the essays went to the researchers, who randomly put them in piles. On one pile, they put a post-it that said, I'm giving you these comments so you had feedback. That was a placebo. And on the other pile, they said, I'm giving you these comments because I have very high expectations and I know you can reach them. This was the wise feedback portion, right? Students were given their papers in private and given the opportunity to make revisions. 40% of the placebo group turned in revised essays, and 80% of the wise group made revisions. So the post-its aren't substitutes for daily gestures and comments, but it does communicate warmth and respect and illustrates the power of the motivating effect of a simple message. So that's where like we want to encourage grit, but like we don't want parents to take this to another level, right? And she also talked about the hard thing rule. Everyone must commit to something that requires deliberate daily practice. Ugh. You can quit, but not till the season is over. Also, you get to pick the hard thing. Grit takes practice. So I think that's why I didn't do this lesson, because I thought it would turn some parents into like, I don't know. So couldn't remember it. I had something. I remembered I never taught it, and maybe this is why.
There, Ellen, there is grit for kids. Lee Davis Daniels. Could that have been it? This is 16 top steps for developing
doesn't-
grit, passion, willpower, perseverance in kids for self-confidence and a successful life.
That
I
does
don't know.
not, that does not sound familiar.
This one, he has the steps, and I've seen this before that kind of goes with DeWick's studies.
Yeah.
I won't do it. I can't do it. I want to do it. How do I do it? I'll try to do it. I can do it. I will do it. Success.
Nice.
Those steps. I've seen that visual before, and that's grit for kids. I don't know if has anyone else used it or familiar? I'm not sure.
Not that in particular, but certainly DeWitt's, I don't remember where I got a video snippet for that I used to use. Ellen, tell me more about your hesitancy about those rules for helping kids stick to things.
I just don't think it's appropriate for early childhood. I think if you have a child, and I think about my daughter who was terrified of swimming, and I put her in the pool and she clung to the side.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes, and so what I did is I pulled her out and we went down a level where she could be successful. I don't always think kids should finish what they start. I don't know. I don't believe in that.
In my mind, I think you
4-year-old.
I think you were having her finish what she started. Changing a level is,
Right. Changing a level. But I think there are some, I have some families who are like, my child hates dance and it's a crying, knockdown, drag out fight. And I'm like, then why are you doing it? Well, she started it. And I'm like, she's 4. Like, kids can go and decide that they don't like things. So I think this is great conversation to have with parents, but I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of parents right now who are really pushy with their kids. And I have to remind them constantly, like, these kids are really little, so I don't know. There's something about it that I don't know. Maybe I did teach it. I don't remember. I don't know. Do you guys, I just feel like some people might take it too seriously and be like, suck it up, buddy. You're going to play football, especially dads. I don't know. I haven't taught it again. So I'll tell you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Of course.
How did grit come to the surface as like the thing we're talking about when we're talking about parenting boys?
Oh, just Scott Galloway's stuff and the boys and the young men in crisis. And like, I don't know how grit came up, but it did.
Because I listened to the YouTube that Lorraine sent out. I finished that this morning, and then I was just listening. It was so interesting. I was listening to the Vivek Murthy's guesting on Scott Galloway's podcast too. I didn't finish that, but I was so struck by the difference in pacing and style that Dr. Murthy took with Scott Galloway versus Krista Tippett. Have any of you listened to both of them?
Yes. Yeah.
Just the
Okay.
Dr. Morthy one.
Okay. So I just think the whole feel of the podcast varies, and I haven't finished the one when Vivek Murthy was with Scott Galloway yet. But here's what I'll say about grit, Ellen. I think there's a cohort of parents who would laugh in our faces if we started talking about grit, because all they do is summon their discipline and resources and resourcefulness every single day. And so I think there's a socioeconomic differential here, which I also would say about Scott Galloway. Like, he's speaking, I think, mostly about white boys and men. He might push back on me enough on that, and I haven't listened to enough of him to know if that's the case or not. But there's like a socioeconomic and racialized component to this that I think we just need to be awake to.
Mhm.
So I would say that I think maybe that's part of your, it doesn't sound like it, but maybe at the time that was maybe some of my families have plenty of grit already, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we did talk about the definition of grit. How are we defining it in, within the context of our conversations with families?
I feel like I would talk about it, but I would say when you're that growth mindset, I think more appropriate is growth mindset. Talking to children about, working hard and focusing on their effort and not the product. I think that eventually builds grit. But I think we can bring grit into the conversation. So it's like in their heads. But I don't know. Yeah, I think so, Sarah. I think kind of what you're saying is true, Sarah. So I think there's more age appropriate ways to talk about this than to actually be like, here's grit and it's finishing what you started. And it's hard work. I mean, because little people don't know how to work hard, right? Even our medium people, our high schoolers, some work hard, some don't, so I have to pop off. I'm going to hop back on in the car, but I have to get in the car. So I'll see you in a bit. I won't see you. You'll see me, whatever.
I do talk with parents about perseverance, mostly during parent-child time. If their child is struggling with something that the early educator has put out, just, I mean, I don't lecture them obviously at that point, but I try to be a good example and encouraging, gosh, yeah, that puzzle's frustrating, but stick with it. See if you can try to get another piece, or look, you didn't give up. You kept turning that piece or whatever, So, and to me, perseverance is related to this topic of grit. And I don't think kids are too young to be encouraged to keep trying.
There's an awesome Bluey episode called Bike, if you want to look for
That's
something.
so good. Bluey Bike.
And we just, my husband and I are watching Bluey because we just find it amazing. He's a bio-ed teacher, and so there's some things on there that he just loves to utilize. But this episode is about perseverance. Bluey doesn't want to, was working at trying to ride her bike, and she just got frustrated and put her bike down and put her helmet down and said, curled up in a ball and was so frustrated. And then she sat on the bench with her dad and watched her friends and her sister struggle through something and how it came out, and how dad kind of said, wait, let's just see and watch for a second and see what they do. I loved it. I'm like, wish I would have had that encouragement as a parent. Just sit back and watch them a little bit struggle. So I'm with you there, Nancy. I think it's a lot about perseverance at this age, for sure, and encouragement. I think grit came up, Katie. You and I think kind of went on that a little bit, right? We were talking about just in the episode with Galloway, how they brought up they wanted their sons. I think it was their son specifically they were talking about, but maybe it was any child, and about working hard at something and experiencing a little difficulty to build the muscle of resilience and perseverance so that they wouldn't go into adulthood expecting something different, so that then they would have the energy or whatever it was to work hard and recognize it, that sort of thing. Because they were talking about being affluent, right? Isn't that what that came from, Katie? And
I
then
would say that's well said. Well said. Yes. He also talked a little bit about, and we've kind of helped our kids. My one daughter has graduated from medical school. My son is in medical school. They're working their butts off. We do help them a little bit financially, but he kind of talked about how so many parents are wanting to support their kids through college. And then, well, it's really hard to buy a house now, so we're going to just help them. And all of a sudden you're supporting your adult kids. And it's like, just, that's maybe not an ideal thing to be doing, so that kind of was underneath that kind of grit heading to, but I don't know, I just liked the concept of, I just think we need a little more grit in our kids and, yeah, so.
That's super helpful. And yes, like the connection between like, you know, there's value in struggle and being able to find resilience, like having practice at that before you fly the nest so that you can draw on your experience of resiliency, right? When bumps happen, because bumps happen. So it's like, and it's also in the vein of like the Julie Liskov-Hines, like How to Raise an Adult kind of stuff. Like they have to experience problem solving on the fly, and you know, autonomy, enough autonomy to get themselves into a little bit of trouble and figure out how to get out of it, and that sort of thing. I do feel like there's a whole pocket there that pushes back against overprotective, over parenting, right? Which is what he was talking about, I think, in that part. And yeah, the financial stuff, boy, am I feeling that with a soon to be 21-year-old. So I was curious what people think about, sorry, there's a big truck passing me. What people think about his prescription for boys, the boys that he coaches, which is stop using your phone so much and instead use the time for getting strong, making money, and spending time with strangers somehow. And I thought that was a really interesting kind of prescription. And he works, you know, kind of incrementally with them to find time and then use it, or use time differently, right? So I think there's a lot of intersection about around so many themes there, right? Like media and technology use. He's talked about pornography, which I thought was interesting. Like he's very a little coarse, which maybe that's because I'm a girl. I don't know. I just think there's a lot to him that's interesting and worth talking about.
Yes,
Um,
what I'm saying is I just want to make sure that parents are being responsive in the right age. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about this. I'm just saying, like, I think it's important for our parents to understand that what is appropriate at each age. You know, you don't want
Minnesota.
you don't want your 5-year-old to be saying, suck it up, buddy. You know, stop crying.
Totally.
To build resilience. Yeah. That's what I'm getting at. So yeah.
You know, and I would guess that it's a really important,
We're eating each other.
oh, is that me?
Sorry. That was me, I think. Sorry.
Okay. I would guess, you know, I was looking for a very quick TikTok video because there was one that passed, you know, how you get those like video pop-ups on Instagram or whatever. But it was like this person who had morphed, you know, like a baby boomer going to work and then like sitting down at the computer and starting work, and then like who came next? Oh, Gen Xer, and then a millennial, and then they got to like a Gen Zer. And by the time they got to the Gen Z, so the baby boomer like comes to work and they're like, okay, well, it's 9 o'clock on the dot, right? And they're like, okay, I'm logging in and so they made a little bit of a joke about, you know, like our age group not being able to use technology. But then as each generation, then they get up to the Gen Zer and there's nobody at the screen. You know? like they're just not even there, right? And anyway, so as I was searching for that, then I found this link to something that that Scott Galloway had about this generation. But you know, it just reminds me from the child development, parent-child relationships courses that I've taught, when we get to young adulthood, you know, and we get to, you know, some of these pundits talking about the young adult generation and about how they're more and more and more are living with their parents, like that that this is the highest percentage of young adults from, I think, 22 to 30 that are living in their parents' homes than ever before. And it's not that they don't have jobs, it's that they're not making enough to also be able to pay rent. And You know, but those conversations about, you know, providing that kind of, what is it, like onboarding to adulthood, for parents. And I think, you know, and I think that like college is kind of weird in there too, because I don't know, college for me is just like this place that young adults go to kind of develop, you know, like in a, you know, some way. So I don't know. I guess it's just in my conversations with students about this, I used to show them a video by, shoot, what's his name? Oh, Scott Sinek, and Simon Sinek. He's the one, he has this graph of start with the why. So usually in our work, we start with the how, and then we get to the like what, and then we get to the why. And so it's more about starting with the why. Anyway, so he's a management consultant. He does a lot of interviews, and he's been spinning quite a bit about the current workforce of young adults and all the things that are wrong with them. And really, like, it's less of what's wrong with them and more about us, like all the ways that we failed them. And so what is employers' now responsibility to kind of set structure and guidelines for these kids because their parents didn't do it, and because, you know, anyway, so I show this to the students, and it is fascinating to watch their responses. That because then we have a discussion and a debate about what they're seeing in this video. And it's, you know, that there's a big group of them that are really offended. And they're like, this is not us. This is not me at all. Like, I am working really hard in college. I'm putting myself through. I am working a job outside. You know, like, I don't know who he's talking about, but that is not me. Right. And then there's like another group, and it really is interestingly divided, you know, that are going, yeah, like there wasn't a whole lot of structure. And you know, college is good for giving me that structure, but frankly, I can choose whether or not I go to class. I can, you know, I've got all kinds of choice around here. And I really am unsure what the work world's going to be like for me, especially when they tell me I can work anywhere I want to. I can set my own hours, right? I can come and go as I please, and I'll never see my boss because everything now is remote, right? So I guess my own point is just that it's got to be tough for parents, you know? I mean, not only when they get to that stage of raising a young adult, but at this point with young children, how much the world will keep changing, and kind of those messages that they've gotten as young adults to adulthood that they're still grappling with, and now they have children, you know?
I remember my husband talking about years ago, so 25 years ago now, probably. He said, you know, the jobs our kids are going to have don't even exist yet. And I thought that was a cute little saying. Now I'm like, okay, here we are. This is tricky. It's just so different. I thought it was going to be kind of cute that they would be in a different social scenario with college and also then post-college life. And it's not so cute necessarily. I try to be very gracious and understanding, but I had no idea, you know, and now we're saying that to the parents that are in our classes as parent educators, going, we don't know. It's already started, that kind of we don't know thing, and it's surprising. That's all I'm going to say. I said enough in the chat. I feel like I shouldn't talk. So anyway.
So, but that was kind of a social change. I mean, after as recently as after World War II, right? Single young adults lived at home until they got married. And I said that to each of our 3 kids who came home after college for a little while. One, because they were in graduate school and that's the only way they could afford to be in graduate school. A couple until they found full-time jobs and could afford those apartments on their own. And they each were terribly embarrassed about being back home with their parents. And of course, we enjoyed it. We loved it, each child for their own reason. But I said to them, why are you embarrassed about this? I mean, it was not that long ago that young adults lived at home until they got married. It's just,
So thanks Nancy for saying that, because I feel like I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel, right? As a parent with young children in these scenarios, because I don't know. We're still in it, in the middle of a chapter. We're not at the end of the book yet. So I don't know how this is going to play out. But the situation I feel that's different right now for these young adults, specifically speaking right now of two white male boys, young men in their mid-20s, mid to late 20s. I think they referenced it too with Galloway. The social structure around it is different now. So they come home and they've got their buddies online. They play a little Dungeons and Dragons, they play a little gaming, or the computer gaming with people they don't know, some that they do know. And it's just so different. Not much for some of them have friends who are involved with like athletic, some sort of like they go to the club or something like that. Some work in environments where they go to work and they plug in at this cafe that is an adjoined club next door to it where they can work out, and they also have climbing walls. And I mean, there's that going on too. But in the rural Minnesota, they come home and get on their computers to be with their friends. And it's so different. It's different. It's not what I experienced. I experienced get involved with a civic group or a religious group or sing in the choir at church again or something, whatever, right? It's just so different. And I hate to judge it. I don't know how to feel about it. And so then how, as a parent educator, oh, anyway.
well, it's another, like you say, it's another phase of life. So you're renegotiating how your household works. How does everybody contribute now?
Yeah.
That everyone's an adult at different parts of the world. We were in Croatia in October. Sorry, this is an intriguing topic to me. And people, they not only live with their parents, there's not a lot of debt, because they build these flat homes and they build another layer for the next generation, and they build another layer, and everybody has a layer. And then once the grandparents on the ground floor pass away, and the grandparents, after they retire, take care of the grandchildren kind of thing, then everybody moves down a level, so it was very intriguing. It's like, of course not only do you live at home, but you've got to layer the house above the previous generation. It was very interesting. And it's just commonplace. It's accepted. That's what's normal. So
That is absolutely fascinating. And have any of you heard, so what you were talking about, Greta, is the loss of the third space. Has Galloway talked about that yet? Has he talked about the loss of the third space?
I have not heard about
He
this.
does.
I'm going to have, oh, does he? Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, just in that bit that I shared that was on his, where was it? Anyway.
Why is the generation
Yeah, the
struggling so
Mercy No
much?
Malice Taking Affection Back.
Oh,
Yeah, but again, that's a short piece, but I would guess that in another part, like in that same podcast, maybe, anyway, but he does talk about the third space.
Yeah, that's what that's what it is, Greta. They used to hang out with people. Like you said, they were in a choir, or they were, they had that's what's missing from young men's lives right now. So if anything, I think it's really important for our families to know that, and to say, like, your kid, it's how do you get your kids involved in things they want to? Maybe, like, how do you make sure they have friends? It's just important for them to know that. And not so much that they need to do it now when their kids are, in kindergarten and under, but elementary, especially middle school, especially high school. And some of our families do have some of those older kids. So making sure they understand that their boys especially need that third space.
yeah.
I just threw in there but where I think that the debate now is, when Greta talks about her son going online, like coming home from work, or maybe just leaving the room, turning around and coming back to his room.
Two of them. No, that's
Is
okay.
that third space virtual? Is that third space, so that organized time or somewhat organized time where they all get together playing Dungeons and Dragons, or they're all getting together playing World of War or whatever it is, you know?
I
Is
think
that a
the third
third
space is, no, I think that's the problem. I think the third space is not meant to be virtual. I think it's meant to be actually in community with real human beings. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the third space needs to be in person, face to face with other humans, not online. But someone can find that episode and listen to it and tell me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
But my original thought is no, not online.
Good questions.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, as someone who like has, like studies technology and its effect and social connections and stuff, that's kind of where the research is, because, well, I'm old school, right? I mean, I'm the one talking about community and hugging and, and getting together over the summer in a farm. So I'm with you, Ellen. I completely, on the other side of it though, as we now have virtual environments that we connect with, and there are, there's a lot of effort to try to replicate the face-to-face experience, where you can even now have haptics, right? So that you can get the warmth of human touch. And and it will not be that long from now that we'll have holograms, and where I'll be sitting and you'll all be sitting in spaces in my room, but you won't really be there, but you'll be there and it'll feel like you're there, right? And so I'm just playing devil's advocate, because this is where the debate is now, is can we, whatever it is that we get from in-person spaces, can technology replicate that to the point of offering people the similar benefits, right? So, and acting like those third spaces. There's a whole lot of people trying, I'll put it that way. It doesn't mean that we can't argue back for in-person and parks and things like that, and God, I hope so, right? But the tech world is really trying. I mean, when you see artificial intelligence with GPT, right, where you can have whole conversations about stuff and plan plan itineraries just by having a conversation with a bot. It's just like, well, why do I need another human being to do this? So all I'm saying is that this is where, and there's a tremendous amount of money behind this, to create these experiences, I would say. And then the research needs to identify. So, and the sad thing is, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that I don't think that the existing research that we have about social connectedness is good enough, right? And now here we're talking about moving on to another environment. So anyway, I'm not arguing one way or the other, but it's kind of where we are. And then, and I know I said the last thing, but I will, but the one thing then is I see it as being not an either or, but another opportunity, right? So years ago, I used to show parenting educators this video from a Today Show. And this was the very early days. And this was like 2008 or something like that. And it was a segment on the digital mom. And this, this was, blogs hadn't really even started that much and that sort of thing. But they were talking about, they did a quick interview with a woman who had tweeted her childbirth, right? And oh my gosh, the parenting educators hit the roof, right? And so, but I argued back with them. I said, I have worked in very rural parts of states where that young mother might have had no social contact at all. And And she may have a kid who is screaming, right? And cannot, and her only social connections are online, are with that community that she has developed through Twitter. And if that keeps her sane and focused, and she is getting, emotional support from that, and she has it nowhere else, might it be possible that that gives her some self-care and an outlet and some positive advice that may prevent her from throwing that kid, right? So, anyway, but yeah, so I'm not arguing against it. I just hope that whatever is good about our face-to-face, those that are trying to replicate it through a virtual environment can do it just as well, because I do believe that for many it would offer, an alternative.
Mhm. I don't even know what to say.
I know. Once again, I've talked you into silence.
No,
Oh,
Well,
we're thinking.
we're processing all of this. I would say that for my lived example, which is only one person's story, would be that my sons, their Dungeons and Dragons experience, which I would have grown up and my grandparents would have said, that's evil. They would have said, don't even go there. And but their lived experience of this creating another narrative that they're sharing online together. They get together first, they talk. They are friends from college who they're nowhere near now. One's in the military, who knows where that person is. 3 of them are going to be in my son's wedding. And I'm like, maybe you're right, Sarah. When we talk about it, Susan, I think they have this shared experience beforehand that they're talking and they're saying, hey, how's this and what's that and where are you doing, what's going on, and then they go, okay, let's play. And then they play for 3 hours, and then at the end they say, how did it go? And they talk it through. And I mean, even like here, I loved giving everybody a hug at Menifee. I already felt like I knew you, but I just got to know you a little bit better, right? I got to feel you and sense you in a different way. And so that was beautiful. And this time here saved me through COVID so many times, encouragement, struggle together, talk things through. This is not invalid. It's as a mom going, what is the most important things for my boys?
Yeah, and actually that is where a lot of the research is too, in terms of offline and online connections.
Yeah.
Right. Is that, and actually the research I was able to do with Parentopia for ECFE, was that parents have these, offline connections in their classes. And the number one thing they said was they want to maintain those connections offline, right? They want to continue their community. And then by having the classes be able to meet each other in a more of a sort of a hallway space, a virtual hallway space, they got to know other parents. And so they weren't like, oh, those parents. They were like, oh, the other ECFE parents, right? And as I mentioned, like the joy at Menifee of the several folks who, they don't even join us on Fridays, they watch the videos, right? And so hi for those of you who are there.
We love you.
We love you. We're so glad that you're with us. Is again, that's kind of felt connection that you have that is a virtual thing, but it doesn't mean that it's only virtual, because then when you have opportunities to see each other face to face, then you extend those, right? So, yeah. I think it's just an exciting world. I think it's very, it's like a whole new territory to experience, and yet at the same time be very, very cautious about, right? Because of privacy and security and ethics, and also that expectation that why would I bother going out? Why would I bother going to driving, getting up and going to the next room when I can just text my husband to bring me a cup of coffee, So that, is like how it then also cycles back into people's behavior. So anyway. Well, we are past 1. Let's just leave. Let's all just quickly go around and say something that you are hopeful for in the coming week. Let me start with Katie. No!
I didn't have any time to think. Okay, quick think. I don't know, I can't wait till it stops raining and the grass is just gonna be beautiful and green and spring is gonna come and we'll be outside more and that's just exciting. And hi, Michelle, I'm so glad you're here.
Hello. Do you want me to go next? Since I'm really
Sure.
you can hear me okay then? Okay. I'm really excited for sunshine too. This week it was so beautiful out and I just get to sit in a lawn chair and have the sun on my face and it felt so great. And this discussion kind of reminded me of something I was talking with my groups about this week about community and how community has changed so greatly. And like even as new neighbors move in and how that interaction will go, or even being vulnerable enough to ask the neighbor for like, I need an egg or I need sugar. And that used to be more commonplace. And now I think we're hesitant about. And so thinking about how, our community, like our neighborhoods, but then also our virtual communities and how that look, all these things were kind of going through my head as we were having this discussion. So I think just maybe being out in my community this week, because the weather is, hopefully the weather will be a little bit nicer. You see everybody out and about and it's so nice. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'll jump off that. I'm so looking forward to warmer weather and things greening up and growing and the whole season of growth. Yep. Let's see, Greta, you're next.
I'll go off of that too. I loved coming home after I officiate pole vault in our high school. And I came home from pole vaulting and my hostas have poked up and I haven't even gotten out there to get the stuff up from last year. So my hope is that the birds find the stuff from last year and build their nests. And I'm hopeful that those hostas are just going to get really big and tall. And I'm hopeful because as I got out of my car, my neighbor waved and I waved back and I said, we're going to get in the gazebo soon, I promise. So that's my hope, growth and connection. So how about you, Cinnamon?
Definitely the weather. The weather's awesome. The sun's great. And just actually kind of looking forward to the wrap up. We're on the downhill run now. So it's trying to figure out, okay, what do I wrap up with in the next couple of weeks and how do I send you off and enjoy summer? And now you are fully in charge. So yeah, it'll be good. Yep.
Great. Well, and what I'm looking forward to is I'm volunteering at Feline Rescue, and this afternoon I'm picking up a foster kitty that's a 12-year-old with diabetes. Yeah, and I haven't had a kitty in my household now for 3 years. And so yeah, so I stepped up to do that. And I'm looking forward to that. Like I would fill my house with every critter I possibly could find. So of course there's the queen who is down here and sleeping. I don't know if you can see her, but anyway, so yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting my foster kitty. So, well, thank you everybody. What a great conversation for today, and welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yes, we hope you can come back and join us again on a Friday.
Yes, I was disappointed. It was our professional development day last Friday, so I couldn't join. And so I thought I'm going to do it today. And then my Zoom was having difficulty, but I got it worked. I got it working now.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Way to stick with it.
That's right. Grit.
Grit. Grit.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Way to go full circle, you guys. Oh my gosh. Okay. And with that, I will wish you all a fabulous week and I'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.